The February 18th edition of the Williamson County School Board. Happy President's Day to everyone who's with us this evening. I'd first like to thank the Franklin High School Choir under the direction of Angela Beal for their wonderful renditions of our singing for us tonight. Thank you very much. Also like to welcome our Students' Congress on Policies and Education from Franklin High School, Nolensville High School, and Page High School, and that is a TSBA, Tennessee School Board Association group called SCOPE. If any of them are here with us this evening, if you'd stand to be recognized. Okay, they're busy. There we are, right in the back. Hey, congratulations. Thank you for being here. And we have with us this evening Boy Scout Troop 130. If you'd stand to be recognized, please. Thank you very much. We also have with us this evening our deputies, Stephen Brogdon and Matt Erickson. They are with us this evening. And at this time, board members, if you would go ahead and record your attendance. Okay, we are all here this evening. Thank you very much. The next item is our Pledge of Allegiance. We'd like to ask our deputies, Deputy Brogdon and Deputy Erickson, to come forward and lead us in the pledge. And if you'd remain standing for a moment of silence, please, after they're done.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the items of particular public interest, our public comment time, and our board policy dealing with agendas states that we have 30 minutes to be placed on the agenda for public speaking, and that Williamson County residents and Williamson County employees shall have first priority, and if time remains after the 30 minutes to speak, we can have other speakers that are not Williamson County parents or faculty. We have signed up right now 16 names to speak this evening. Typically we try to go with a 2 or 3 minute speaking time, so since we have limited 30, we'll take 15 speakers at 2 minutes each. If board members, you're okay with that? 15 speakers at 2 minutes. And we have one from out of the county, and so they would be, if there's any time left, if we don't go over 30 minutes, they would be able to speak as well. So our first speaker is Costa Stevens. If you'd come forward and state your name, address, and your subject area, please.
Hi, my name is Costa Stevens. Do I have to state my address? That's what you said?
Yes, please.
Sorry, 7351 Bradford Road, Prim Springs, Tennessee. And I'm here to speak regarding the board's policy on immunizations. My name is Costa Stevens. I want to start by saying thank you to the board for allowing us to speak tonight. My husband and I live in Williamson County. We have 3 children. For the last 4 years, we've used religious exemptions at church preschools, day cares, and now at Fairview Elementary with no issues. Not once have I ever felt like the validity of my religion, my religious convictions were being questioned. Recently, all that's changed. Various media outlets throughout the state of Tennessee have been reporting that Williamson County has the highest percentage of children attending school on religious exemptions. The Franklin homepage website draws attention to a Vanderbilt website that states how different religions view vaccinations. And I just want to make sure the board is aware that religion, as defined by the law, is a set of beliefs or tenets that go to life, purpose, and death. It does not require that a person belong to a specific church or denomination. Some of these media reports also allude that parents may be using religious exemptions dishonestly, and that many have been misinformed regarding vaccinations. I'm here tonight because I want to put a face of religious exemption before the board and to assure each one of you that we're not falsely claiming that vaccinations are against our religious tenets, nor are we misinformed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker just listed Amy. Amy, I'm going to need your full name and address, please, for the record.
Hello. Given the sensitive nature of the topic, I'm not inclined to give my full name and address on the record. I do have my driver's license if you'd like to verify. I can attest I am a county resident, and I can attest that my children are likely part of the statistics that you all are reviewing regarding the immunization policies.
Ma'am, if you would present that to our attorney, please.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I come today to speak very briefly on the your policy regarding religious exemptions to the immunization requirement for school entry. I don't believe anybody has a problem with this board accepting the policy as it is written by state law verbatim. There's no problem there. The issue that I was able to garner from last week's work session, as well as some of the articles that were written, was that there's this allegation that parents are using the religious exemptions fraudulently, and that there's also some other conflicting interests that is causing a muddying of the waters, issues regarding measles in Washington, the rising rates of exemptions in Williamson County. These issues tend to confuse what is before the board. What's before the board is religious exemptions, and what the state law has outlined as what your authority is as far as accepting or rejecting religious exemptions. If you are presented with a lawfully executed document that's a religious exemption, you take that document, you put it in the student's file. This district does not have the authority to question or doubt a religious exemption, or to question the parent as to what thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gina, and again, I'm going to need more than just first name, please.
For HIPAA reasons, I'm going to go ahead and present my driver's license.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chair, School Board, and Dr. Looney. I want to thank you for taking public comment, and I also want to thank you for the integrity of holding up the oath of office, which is to uphold the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and the Tennessee Constitution. I'm not here to advocate for or give permissions for anyone to make divine decisions that belong solely to the individual and to parental rights. So I'm here to talk about the religious exemptions and the false claims of people using a religious exemption falsely. When we consider the topic of vaccination, we must consider the freedoms that our Constitution has provided for, as well as the Nuremberg Code, which is the first, which provides for the freedom of practicing religion, and the second, which provides for consult of medical treatment, especially after the atrocities of the Nazis in World War II. As I sit here, or as I've listened to the discussions that have taken place, I reflect about what it's like when you sit in church. When you look to the left of you, when you look to the right of you, do all those people practice and walk out their faith and their beliefs in the same way? I don't think so. So when I see a list of religions put out by Vanderbilt saying these are what the religion believes, I wonder, is this county going to ask people what faith do you practice? And are you going to use that to judge and determine somebody's beliefs? So I'm asking you to understand that the government, the Constitution, holds religion not as an affiliation to a church. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Jessica Stoltz.
Jessica Stoltz, 2525 Carmine Street, Silver Stream rezoning. Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to be here tonight to speak on the current proposal that would rezone Silver Stream Farm to Nolensville Elementary. There are lots of opinions about why we are asking you to vote no on the proposed plan. So let me set the record straight. We are here not only on our own behalf, but also on behalf of the long-term interests of our town. We have done a lot of research, and after all that we've learned, we feel that the focus shouldn't be on the short-term impact of voting no to this proposal. Instead, it should be on the long-term impact of voting yes. A vote to pass this proposal is a vote for a short-term fix that sets our town up for more painful rezoning situations in the future. We are also here on behalf of the other 30 walkable communities in Williamson County. We live in an age when childhood obesity is becoming an epidemic and when so many parents across the country struggle to get their kids outside and to keep them active and healthy. If you rezone us to a school where walking is no longer feasible for our children, you set a dangerous precedent that walkable neighborhoods throughout Williamson County are vulnerable to rezoning if you need to fill empty seats somewhere farther away. We are here tonight to make 4 main points. First, we want to make it clear that this rezoning is a unique situation, unlike this board has ever seen before. We also want to clarify some numbers for you related to the growth in the affected school zone and show you that the proposed plan will not provide the 3 to 5 year relief promised. We want you to understand how our town is different from other areas of Williamson County. And finally, we want to ask you for long-term solutions. We are not in favor of Mill Creek staying overcrowded on a permanent basis, but we are in favor of allowing temporary overcrowding only if it gets us to a longer-term fix. I'd like to remind everyone in the room and everyone watching about the depth of knowledge and experience that our district representative, Gary Anderson, has in this area. Gary cares about his community as a whole, so the fact that he has been vocal about this plan should throw up a red flag for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Matthew Taylor.
Man, you all have a tough job. At least last time you got cookies. Matthew Taylor, 3001 Wanamaker Trail, Silver Stream Farm rezoning. Most of you on this board have been through rezonings before, and I'm guessing there are ways in which everyone is the same. You know you're going to get pushback from parents, guilty as charged. You probably even know what the main arguments are going to be. You can anticipate those, but this is not just an emotional reaction that we're offering. This rezoning is unique, and I want to offer some reasons why. First, Silver Stream Farm shares a property line with the Mill Creek campus. As was mentioned in last week's work session, this is the first time that a neighborhood that shares a property line with its own school is up for rezoning away from that school. Second, this rezoning sends a neighborhood that helped open a school back to its former school, and it does so less than 3 years later. Piper back there with her sign that you may have seen was one of those students. Silver Stream Farm was rezoned to help open Mill Creek Elementary in fall 2016. Many Silver Stream Farm families invested financially, becoming founding members of the school. Now those families are being asked to return to their former school less than 3 years later. Another unique aspect of this situation is that you're proposing to rezone a neighborhood from a school where walking and biking is easy to a school where it's no longer feasible. Our neighborhood spent $50,000 of its own money to invest in the trail so that kids could make walking and biking to school a habit. Here are the facts. Silver Stream is about 6/10 of a mile from Mill Creek Elementary on a direct path. Nolensville Elementary is nearly triple that distance at 1.7 miles, and there's no direct path other than for cars. The claim's been made that biking from our neighborhood to Nolensville Elementary is possible in 12 minutes, which may be true for adults. They do not accurately reflect how long it would take children to bike to school, nor do they convey that walking to Nolensville Elementary isn't viable for our kids. If we are rezoned, you take away our option to walk or bike to school, and you force buses and cars carrying our children to make a dangerous left turn onto Rocky Fork Road. As you vote on this proposal tonight, please remember that this situation is unique. Its factors can't be easily applied to other situations across the county. One thing is for sure, though, a vote... Cliffhanger.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Dan. And Dan, I'm going to let you pronounce your last name because I think I messed this one up last time.
Dan Masuka, 2625 Cortland Court, Silver Stream rezoning. I'd like to focus my comments on the growth projections for Nolensville and how it doesn't seem feasible that this plan will buy us 3 to 5 years before overcrowding occurs at both schools in question. You have some slides that we gave you that you guys provided for us, so if you can follow along as I go through these numbers. First, let's look at the 1-year impact at Mill Creek Elementary School. To do this, I'd like to focus on 2 notes at the bottom of the slide, one about grandfathering projections and the other about growth. The slide shows that moving Silver Stream Farm out of Mill Creek leaves Mill Creek with 735 students next year. The note at the bottom of the slide, however, states that grandfathering projections are left out. In January, at the work session in January, Dr. Looney said that history shows that 50% of those eligible to grandfather do so. If 50% of the 42 eligible 5th graders and their siblings grandfather, we need to change the number of students at Mill Creek next year from 735 to 756. Next, you'll note that the slide says that the projected growth at Mill Creek zone isn't expected to slow down until 2021. If growth won't slow down until 2021, it seems appropriate then to assume that Mill Creek will see similar growth in both 2019-2020 school years. Williamson County Schools projects adding 72 students at Mill Creek for the 2019 school year. If you take that same projection for 2020, Mill Creek starts the 2020 school year 1 year after rezoning takes effect over capacity with 828 students. We know that rezoning has impacts on children and communities. Do we really want to pass a rezoning plan that puts Mill Creek back over capacity in 1 year? But then there's another school, and that's Nolensville Elementary. Williamson County Schools projections predict that Nolensville Elementary will add 40 students in 1920 school year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Missy McElroy.
Hi, I'm Missy McElroy, 2713 Cortland Lane. I'm talking about community and culture tonight. I've lived in, we love Williamson County. We lived in the Nashville area over 17 years. We moved to Nolensville for this school, for a small town feel, and let's be honest, for Martin's Barbecue. The summer 2016, before Mill Creek opened, my husband, my kids, and I, we walked the track. We walked the campus multiple times, praying for the teachers, praying for the students, praying for the faculty before this school is even finished being built. When Mill Creek opened, we attended the ribbon cutting and open house for our toddlers to see their big boy school. We've been to numerous football games. We put our time and energy into the school because we knew it was worth it. We knew our kids were going to be there. The Nolensville community, it's unique, it's special, it's family, and it feels like it's being ripped apart right now. Based on our current proposal, if Silver Stream this year, it will be another neighborhood next year. This is a temporary solution. If you think the reaction to this rezoning has been intense, which we all know, it's going to be pretty bad in the future. If stability is taken away, community investments will be also. If more rezones happen, it's less likely that you're going to have parents pouring their hard-earned money into the 500 legacy wall bricks for a school to be built, knowing their child might not stay there. Give our children stability. Give our community a school to rally behind. Give your staff a chance to see these kids that they taught grow up in their own school. Give our children a community. I just said that. Want to say from the last meeting, Dr. Looney, I agree with you. You said in the last session, I don't think whatever we do, we put a patch on it. We're going to do something. Let's do something different. Let's do something different, you guys. Let's do this for the long term. Let's not do this for something different every single year. This is for our kids. This is for our community. Thanks to each and every one of you for what you do. And Gary back there, thank you for representing our entire district. You know this better than anyone else. Vote this proposal no. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rebecca Abel.
Rebecca Abel, 2397 Orchard Street, Silver Stream Farm rezoning. I'm here to talk about how we need long-term solutions, and as you've already heard, we don't believe the current rezoning plan provides them. I want to make it clear that we are not pushing for Mill Creek to stay overcrowded. We recognize that overcrowding has an impact on our students. What we are pushing for, however, is to find a way to make things more palatable at Mill Creek until a better solution can be developed that has more long-term viability for the entire Nolensville area. We're troubled by the pending overcrowding at Mill Creek Middle, given that both Mill Creek Elementary and Nolensville Elementary, the current feeder schools, will both be over capacity soon. If we keep doing what we've been doing, overcrowding will continue to be an issue for our community, and the board will be revisiting this issue again next year, as others have said. We've heard multiple times during this process that plans for Summerlin weren't known when Mill Creek was zoned, but that is simply not the case. The zoning proposal for Mill Creek was brought before the board in March 2014. Plans for Summerlin were known as early as September 2013. In fact, during the September 2013 meeting of the Nolensville Planning Commission, a concept plan for the development adjacent to the Mill Creek Nolensville campus changed its name from Creekside to Summerlin. And in February 2014, the month before plans were shared with the board, the Nolensville Planning Commission discussed the site plans for the new school, specifically mentioning the connectivity of the Summerlin neighborhood to the school. This leaves one to wonder what the truth is here. Either staff has been misleading us about how they didn't know about Summerlin, or they've been misleading us about how closely they work with towns and municipalities to understand the growth that's on the horizon. No matter which of these is true, either option should be of concern to the board. I'll leave you with one final thought, an expression my dearly departed father used in his arsenal of Southern sayings. Consider the 5 P's of success. Proper planning prevents poor performance. I encourage the board to vote no on this proposal so that a better long-term solution can be developed for our community. Thanks for your time and dedicated service to Williamson County.
Next speaker is Amanda Farr.
Amanda Farr, 2508 Hester Court, Silver Stream Farm rezoning. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak and to ask you to vote no on the proposal to rezone Silver Stream Farm to Nolensville Elementary. We've heard it over and over again. Williamson County Schools adds 1,200 kids every year. As a former educator in the Williamson County system, now parent of 5 children in these schools, and a veteran realtor, I can attest to the importance of the quality of schools and the impact that they have on our community. Our rate of growth is amazing, and it's brought us to accept constant rezoning as a part of life in Williamson County. We all assume that explosive growth makes frequent rezoning necessary, but in truth, it doesn't have to be the case. Just look at Richardson, Texas, and their zoning model. Richardson's one of the fastest growing suburbs outside of the Dallas area with a current population of 91,000. Growth has been explosive there during the last 10 years. However, this independent school district has not redrawn zoning lines in over 20 years. What I'm suggesting is that maybe it's time to investigate other models and formulate an approach that will provide the same kind of long-term stability here for Williamson County students. We could look again at hiring a consultant like the one Richardson uses. Oddly enough, they have an office here in Nashville. Every day before I drop my kids off at school, I challenge them to do 3 things that will make a difference to someone. It doesn't have to be something big, just something that encourages them to be better and to help others be better too. We expect our kids to give their best each and every day, and that is all that we are asking you, the board, to do. Please give us your best. We've heard throughout this process that there are no easy answers, and we wholeheartedly understand and believe that. But we are not looking for easy answers. We are looking for thoughtful, investigated, and diplomatic ones that ultimately work for the greater good of Nolensville, as well as all students in Williamson County. Our kids are our highest priority, and we trust that they are yours too. This proposal has been positioned as one that is a win-win since it relieves overcrowding at Mill Creek and fills empty seats at Nolensville. We ask you to widen your lens a bit and see that this is a short-term fix that will not improve the long-term stability of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Philip Zeng. Did I say that correctly?
Good evening. My name is Philip Zeng, 2712 Cortland Lane, Silver Stream rezoning. I want to first thank each of you for all the thought and research you have put into this rezone. Many Silver Stream residents have brought up valid points that Dr. Looney has found future fixes for. It seems that these solutions were only considered assuming Silver Stream Farms gets rezoned. I ask that instead of moving this group here or there once Nolensville Elementary gets overcrowded, has the Williamson County Schools staff taken a step back and reevaluated the whole Nolensville area after new information has been brought to their attention. If it has not, I ask that the board vote no to allow the WCS staff to do exactly that. Take a step back and look at the growth of Nolensville as a whole and reevaluate to see if an even better, more long-term solution is available. We also want to let you know that regardless of the outcome, we are truly appreciative of the time you've spent thinking through this rezoning proposal. You've answered emails, you've fielded phone calls, you've taken time to show up to meetings. We can't thank you enough for what you've done and how you've lived up to your roles as public servants. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lisa Garamone, or French Garamone.
Hi, Lisa Garamone, 3144 Bradfield Drive. I'm here about the Mill Creek rezoning as well. Want to make sure that everyone here understands the situation the school is already in. The school is already overcrowded at this point. My 5th grader won't buy lunch because she can't be assured that there will be food left at 12:45 when the 5th graders are allowed to go to lunch. In fact, last week the cafeteria ran out of food for certain items. The overcrowding situation is a safety concern for the students. You know, the school nurses have talked to us about some of the ideas that have been presented by different parents at other meetings. Portables, 8th graders going to the high school, things of that nature. Portables are not a safe option. Can you imagine walking back and forth from the school building to a portable the next 2 weeks with the rain that we're going to have, or in the snow, or in the 20-degree temperatures? Not to mention, when things go wrong and we have manhunts happening with helicopters flying overhead in Williamson County, which has been a regular event over the last several months, I sure wouldn't want my 5th grader and 6th grader walking from a portable to the classroom and having to worry about their safety getting back in the building. And would we have an open door in the building for those students to go back and forth? And that's another entry point for someone. 8th graders being sent to the high school shouldn't even be an option on the table. 8th grade is a tough time for kids anyway. Sending them to be with 9th through 12th graders across a parking lot that is traveled during the day is not safe. Many students and families already drive past Nolensville Elementary to get to Mill Creek Elementary, and so I think that there is nothing wrong with rezoning some folks over to Nolensville Elementary for the time being. It's not a long-term solution. However, we've got to ease some of this busting at the seams that's happening right now. And we would just ask that the money that is available is, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dorothy Ciner.
Thank you. My name is Dorothy Ciner. I live at 1212 Devons Drive in Brentwood, and I'm here to discuss immunizations. I'm a medical doctor that's trained in pediatrics. I'm a fellow in the American Academy of Pediatrics, and I'm a mom of 2 rather recent graduates of Brentwood High School. I'm here tonight to address a dangerous public health issue that was recently highlighted in the Tennessean and other area news outlets. That is that we have an alarmingly high rate of religious exemptions to immunizations. According to our public health officials, WCS is reporting a religious exemption rate of slightly over 4% among incoming kindergartners. We now lead the state in religious exemptions to immunization. This is concerning on a number of levels. Of course, I'm concerned about the 109 children who will be unprotected from serious infectious diseases because they are unimmunized. But I'm also concerned that our community is being put at risk. I'm sure that most of you have heard about the measles outbreak in the state of Washington. Williamson County could be next. Vaccines not only protect the person who gets the vaccine, but they also protect the community through what we call community immunity or herd immunity. When nearly everyone who can be vaccinated is vaccinated, germs can't travel as easily from person to person. So those individuals with weak immune systems or those who legitimately can't get vaccinated are less likely to get the disease, and outbreaks are less likely to occur. Measles is one of the most contagious infectious diseases we have. So to achieve community immunity, we need a population immunization rate of 95% or higher. Williamson County is getting awfully close to dropping below that threshold. We have immunocompromised children and pregnant and immunocompromised adults in our schools whose health is at risk because of these choices not to immunize. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Burke White.
Hi, Burke White, 6010 Fishing Creek Road. Here to talk in Nolensville. Here to talk about the Mill Creek rezoning. As I said, my name is Burke White. I have a child at Mill Creek Middle, twins at Mill Creek Elementary, another one that's going to be in kindergarten in 2 years. So I know a little bit, a thing or four, about overcrowding. All right. First off, let me say I appreciate your time tonight and throughout this entire process. I don't envy your position of having to make these rezoning decisions, and I assume that you have the best interests of all Williamson County communities in your head and heart as you evaluate various proposals and decide on the best course of action. And that's really why I'm speaking and why I'm even here tonight, is to make sure that all of our community is heard. I'm in agreement with everyone in our town that Nolensville needs a better long-term plan. The community is growing very quickly, as you know, and the areas south of us are expected to grow at the same, if not faster rate. First and foremost, I request that Williamson County schools have a solid, concrete, detailed plan for the future of Nolensville. However, I don't believe in deferring decisions or leaving things as is as that plan comes together. Leaving schools overcrowded or accommodating any of the short-term solutions proposed at the last working session are not in the best interest of the entire community. We have an elementary school that sits close to 60% capacity, while the other is spilling over into the middle school, converted offices, and computer labs. Rather than move elementary students to that open school, we have proposals on the table that not only don't make sense from a fiscal perspective, they're actually detrimental to all the students and teachers, and now involve middle school students, a demographic that was previously not involved in this issue. If both Mill Creek and Nolensville Elementary were currently at or over capacity, I would support plans that help everyone in the community make it through until another school is built. I can't speak for all of Nolensville, but I'd like to think that we would all take one for the team, in that case for the betterment of all the children of Nolensville. But I cannot, in good conscience, support any plan that does not relieve the overcrowding at Mill Creek Elementary, while another great elementary school sits nearby with open capacity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker is Donna, is it Sava? Sarva?
Don't butcher it, honey. It's all good. Been here before. You're good. Donna Sava, 1133 Cedarview Lane in Franklin. I've seen all of you so many times before. I was going to stand up here today and talk about the immunization thing because I have a son who was recently diagnosed and he's now immunocompromised. So I think it is really, really, really important. And I mean, if you have nothing to hide, then I don't understand why the sign in the paper's a problem. I mean, it doesn't bother me anyway. But instead, I'm going to take the rest of my time. I'm going to tell all you people, I have stood in this building for years. I have twin boys. They're in 10th grade. I have been fighting rezoning since they were in 3rd grade. Fighting, fighting, fighting. We got Clovercroft Elementary built. We are in the process of having all of this stuff built out at Page Middle and Page High School. And these people that sit here fight for us every single day. And they can only do so much. So I'm going to tell you what you need to do. I love how motivated you are, and I love how moved you are, and I love that you're all in support here. But you need to sit into the county commission. Those are the people with the purse strings. Those are the people that control the money, and those are the people that hamstring these people from getting our kids what they need. If you do not sit in on the county commission meetings, if you do not tell those people to get off their ass and raise property taxes or find other revenue streams somewhere, your kids will sit in a building like my kids. We had 10 portables at Page Middle School. So I feel all of you. Right now, our principal out at Page High School, when it rains, the roof leaks. He sits by the front door with a mop. They can only do so much. I'm telling you, I love how motivated you are. I love it, love it, love it. I'm sitting back there with my friend. We have sat through meeting after meeting after meeting. Do yourself a favor. They can only do what they can do. They want all the best for our kids. And trust me, all the idiots are gone. We kick them all off. They're good. These people love our kids. Love you guys.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I want to kind of dwell on that one for a little bit. Our next speaker is Kimberly FEGLI.
Hi, I'm Kimberly FEGLI in Bent Creek, 4608 Sawmill Place. And I just want to thank all of you. We've been here before when Nolensville Elementary Bent Creek was going to be rezoned from Nolensville Elementary to Clovercroft. And then I remember at a meeting when all the Bent Creek people didn't show up because you had promised that we wouldn't be rezoned to Clovercroft, and you said, but if it keeps growing like this, you might be going to College Grove. And we were thinking, oh, wow, the 7 miles to Clovercroft looked a lot better than the 12 miles to College Grove. So we just thank you for the service that you have. I have 2 high schoolers at Nolensville High School and a 7th grader at Mill Creek Middle. And I oppose any plan that would involve sending my 12-year-old in August to the high school. I love my high schoolers. I do not villainize any high schoolers. But there's a huge chasm of emotional and social maturity between a 12-year-old 8th grader and an 18-year-old high schooler. And I just would really appreciate if you take that into consideration. As well, the logistical nightmare that would be for Mr. Yates and his administration trying to oversee the education and both the core curriculum as well as our majors and minors of trying to transport kids back and forth or provide everything that they need in the high school building. Either way, it would either be a fiscal problem or a logistical problem. I also would like to say that having had a 5th grader at Nolensville Elementary in the portable, I do see it as an increased security threat that you've got that many more people going in and out of the building. You've got children that are going in by themselves with a key to let themselves into the bathroom because the portables don't have bathrooms. And we have seen an increased rate of security incidents. And I just would prefer to not expose all of the middle and elementary school at Mill Creek to that security threat.
Thank you. Board members, we've gone a little bit over the 30-minute time limit. We've had 15 speakers, all from Williamson County, so I'm going to close our public comment section at this time and move on to our next item, which is the approval of the agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the agenda? Motion to approve from Mr. Welch. Second from Mr. Mitchell. Okay, if you'd go ahead and record your vote, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The next item is the consent agenda. Anyone like to make a motion for the consent agenda items? We have a motion from Ms. Cleveland. We have a second from Mr. Fiskus. Anyone have any discussion on that? If not, go ahead and record your votes, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. When we approve the consent agenda, we approve the January 23rd, 2019 school board meeting minutes. We approved board policies on second reading, the entire Section 2 policies. We approved the recommendations for field trip fee requests. We approved the Title IV Student Support and Academic Enrichment Competitive Grant. And we approved the Hermitage Elementary School playground equipment. Next item is communications to the board, the superintendent's report. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. It's good to see you this evening. I do want to just take a moment to thank you publicly as well. Rezoning is a very difficult conversation to have for the public's consumption. Board members were talking to me 5 minutes before this meeting all through the weekend, and so you have been very engaged, and I do appreciate the difficult position that you're in. We have 40,411 students enrolled in the district at this point in time. That's the last report I got. And I just want to also mention that we've been suffering with the flu in various locations across the district, but our attendance remains pretty strong. We have a couple of schools today that were in the low 90s, but for the most part, we're in the 95, 96% range. With that being said, I'd like to call Mrs. Birdsong forward, and she wants to help us recognize some very deserving students and employees.
Thank you, Dr. Looney. Board members, do I have exciting news for you this evening? We have set yet another record. Yes, we have 51 National Merit finalists. So sit back and enjoy, because I'm going to introduce you to all of them. We are going to start at Brentwood High School. Brentwood had 18 National Merit finalists. This is Namra Ashmal, Grant Ballard, Celia Brazil, Derek Chin, Jessica Cortez, Quinn Connolly, Cade Fowler, Patrick Holcomb, Suraji Kurthi, Aspen Martin, Caroline Overton, Elizabeth Shaw, Yishu, Paige Russell, Emma Rutherford, Hudson Staggs, Davis Westbrook, and Georgia Winkler from Brentwood High School. Centennial High School had 3 National Merit finalists: Malia Orr, William Ward, and Ray Zavershand. At Franklin High School, 14 National Merit finalists: Olivia Bruno, Megan Carneal, Joshua Garrettson, Sina Gandhi, Paige Hurley, June Kalindas, Evelyn Laney, Sarah Lee, Madeline McGaha, David Ong, Madeline Repath, Kate Sanborn, Sally Shadrack, and Grace Simpson. At Independence, Will Hinkey, Brent Lane, and Sean Spolatini. At Page High School, Megan Juba and Jacob Robbins. At Ravenwood High School, Jordan Albrecht, Kevin Frost, Matthew Goodbrid, Audra Wang, Gabriel Liu, Daniel Pert, Lauren Shepard, Grace Sullivan, Maya Thiem, Sean Wheeland, and Isabel Wilson. Those are your 51 National Merit finalists. And now we will move into sports honors. This is Skylar Coffey from Brentwood High School. Skylar just won the TSSAA State Wrestling Championship in AAA, the 220-pound division. His coaches are Damon Smith and Jordan Loy. From Fairview High School, Jackson Clivenger, TSSAA State Wrestling Champion in Single AA, the 285-pound division. James Derrick is his coach. Now we're moving on into the arts. All-State Band. This is Meredith Sparks from Brentwood High School. Her teachers, Andrew O'Keefe and Katina Nicholson. From Centennial High School, Anna Cawthorn and Randall Beard. Scott Miller, their band director. From Franklin High School, Ethan Bendham, Isaac Collins and Brandon Vaughn, David Adelot and Jacob Campos. Their instructors. From Nolensville High School, Louisa Bood and Casey Martins, Benjamin Easley and Michael Holland, their instructors. From Page High School, All-State Band, Connor Flatt, Michael Rawson is his instructor. And Ravenwood High School, Matt Helu, Kayla Richardson and Kelly Bork, Chris Janwick and Brianna Berger, their instructors. Summit High School, Brennan Angus, in All-State Band, Eric Harris and Scott Atchley. And then All-State Orchestra from Brentwood High School, Bright Johnston, Joanne Kang, Alyssa Fetters, Katie Rose Bennett and Brooke Ninkart, Andrew O'Keefe, their orchestra leader. From Franklin High School, Sarah Shue and Sarah Lee, Cassandra Brosvik is their teacher. From Nolensville High School, Anna Touchstone, Craig Medull, her instructor. And from Ravenwood High School, Selena Wang, Sophie Lee, Matthew Goodbrid, Carson Pruitt, Brendan Goodbrid, Samuel Schaefer, Savar oh my goodness, Savar, Shwanky, I can't. Andrew Wang, Daniel Chin, Ria Mitra, Dia Mitra, and Andrew Wang. I was doing so well there. Cassandra Brosvik, their instructor, Jake Albreth. Thank you. All right, congratulations to all of our students.
Mr. Chairman, that completes my report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Dr. Looney, board members?
I would just say,
Working?
as a guy who was a wrestling coach, I just want to give a shout out to the 60. There, including those two, there were 58 other students from Williamson County who competed in the state tournament this weekend. They won multiple medals. We had 3 runner-ups, 3 or 4 that came in third, 4 or 5 that came in fourth. We had a great showing, and so not only are we strong in academics, but we also we're very strong there at the state tournament, which we also host at the Ag Center. So if you get the chance, take your Valentine's date to the state tournament next year. We'll be at the Ag Center all weekend.
Thank you. Okay, on the next item is the board chairman's report, and I think we have enough stuff on the agenda tonight that you don't need to hear from me on anything else at this point. So if you're all okay with that, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Unfinished business, we have none. We do have new business, though. 2018-19 school board budget, special education TA positions, teacher assistant positions. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, as we discussed at the work session, there is an immediate need to hire some additional special education teacher assistants for the sole purpose of providing direct services to students that have that need. I do recommend your approval.
We have a motion for approval from Mr. Wimberly, second from Miss Emerson. Sorry. Any discussions? Okay, I see none. If you go ahead then and record your votes, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you, board. The next item is the intra-category transfer startup costs for the new elementary school on Gosse Hill Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, as you know, we've started work on construction of a new school on Gosse Hill Road. We traditionally give startup costs so we can begin furnishing that school and hiring the appropriate staff members. So I appreciate your consideration of this matter.
We'll make a motion. We have a motion for Ms. Garrett. We have a second for Mr. Fiskus. Any comments, questions? Okay, I see none. You have the superintendent's recommendation. If you go ahead and vote, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The next item is the general purpose school budget resolution for 2 additional early childhood classrooms. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, the federal law requires that we identify and serve students ages 3 and up that have learning disabilities or some sort of special education service requirement. As a result, we have identified some additional students and are required under federal law to begin serving them. I do want to add, this is an unfunded mandate. We get very little money in order to serve these students, and recently we've been informed by the Department of Ed that we're going to have to increase the number of regular peers that go to school with their counterparts moving forward. So we're going to be needing to have some additional conversations moving forward about how we serve those students, but we do have this immediate need now.
Anyone like to make a motion on this one? Okay, we have a motion from Ms. Cleveland. Anyone like to second it? We have a second from Mr. Cash. Any further discussions, comments, or questions? Okay, I see none. You have the superintendent's recommendation.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you, board. Next item is the 2019-20 family tuition rate. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. Every year we're required to set the tuition rate for out-of-county residents who have a building plan approved to build in Williamson County, and also for our employees that live out of county and bring their children with them. The tuition rates are as thus: $3,850 for employees and $6,909 for families moving into the district. I do recommend your approval.
Anyone like to make a motion on this one? We have a motion from Mr. Welch. We have a second from Mr. Hall. Any further discussions, comments, questions? Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is the employee rate per child or for a total family?
Yes, sir. Thank you for your question. Both rates are family rates.
And is this employee rate the same as it was in 2018-19?
Yes, sir. The employee rate is. The family rate went down slightly. Is that right? Is that right, Ms. Holman? Increased slightly?
It's the same as it was last year for new employees bringing their stuff, and the other ones for people moving into the county did go down about $91.
Okay.
So as we get ready to talk about our budget, I guess, next month, I would very much like to request that we talk about this particular item to see if there's a way we can continue to drive that down. We know that one of our challenges are finding teachers, and new teachers out of college struggle to live in Williamson, afford to live in Williamson County. They're also typically the age of employees who will have children, and it seems to me that this ought to be a benefit, and obviously it's a reduced cost, but I'm in favor of figuring out a way we can drive that down, if not make it an actual full paid for benefit of teachers.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussions? Okay, I see none. You have the superintendent's recommendation. If you go ahead and record your votes, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The next item is rezoning plan for 2019-2020 school year. And number one is zoning proposal for Oakview area and undeveloped subdivisions. Dr. Looney.
Recommend approval.
Anyone like to make a motion to that effect? We have a motion from Ms. Garrett. I'd like to second from Mr. Cash. And Ms. Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that this is a school that is currently at 120% capacity with 6 portables. I think a complete grade is out in portables there. This has been a long time coming for this area, and appreciate the way that the community is coming together to work through all of these challenges. And also want to express my appreciation to our professional zoning staff, who have had lots of input from this area over the years, and I think have provided a workable solution.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Okay, I see none. You have the director's recommendation. Go ahead and record your votes, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The next one is the Mill Creek zoning proposal. Dr. Looney.
Recommend approval as submitted.
Anyone like to make a motion for that? We have a motion from Mr. Welch. I'd like to second the motion. Second. We have a second from Mr. Wimberly. Okay, comments or discussions? Okay, we have I'm sorry. Okay, we have Ms. Durham.
Thank you. I just want to talk a little bit about some stuff that I've kind of learned over the past couple weeks about some of the numbers. Looks like Parman Farm wasn't really planned, I guess, in the or considered in the numbers. And it looks like we probably need to revisit, I think, what's going to happen immediately once we move anybody out of Mill Creek into Nolensville. It looks like there's going to be crowding instantly that I don't think was considered before. So I definitely know that we've got to relieve the overcrowding. I think we need to go back to the table and see what we need to do about the impending overcrowding that wasn't put into the plans. So I would like to propose that we step back and push this off until next month and really spend some more time looking at the numbers that, you know, Allison's getting from the developers.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Ask her if she's making that motion.
Is that a motion then to do that?
I can move to do that, yep.
Okay, anyone? So we have a motion and a second to, and can you state it so it would be a motion, please?
So I move to table the vote for tonight on the rezoning in exploration of the numbers and investigation of the numbers to make sure that we're considering all of the potential residents that are coming down the pike, Parman Farms in particular, 251 homes that are scheduled to be completed within the next 1 to 2 years. It's going to immediately push us over capacity as soon as people start moving in. I don't think it's going to work. I think we're trying to do the right thing, but it's not the right, potentially right move right now. So I'm motioning to table the vote for tonight and go back to the table and look at all of the numbers.
Proper motion, proper second, no discussion, and it needs a two-thirds majority. It needs a two-third vote.
Okay. Been advised by our attorney we have a proper motion, a proper second, and there is no debate on it. And I'm going to ask on the table, you say it takes a two-third majority for that to happen, since we're following Robert's Rules of Order?
Correct.
Okay, so we have a proper motion, proper second. It's going to take a two-thirds majority to make that happen under Robert's Rules of Order. And there's no discussion on this one. Do we get the superintendent's recommendation on that or not? No?
Nope, we're done.
No. All right, so we need to be voting then on
Tabling it.
the motion to table it. Right. Okay? Till next month, to give staff time to do the study. Is that your motion, Ms. Durham?
Yes.
Okay. All right, board members, we need to vote then, since there's no discussion on this item, no debate.
Your vote is 6 yes, 6 no.
Okay, the motion then fails to table. All right, further discussion. I had some other people up here that it erased when we did the vote. Eric and Candy. Candy, okay. Ms. Emerson?
I agree with Ms. Durham. I think that the arguments that have been brought to our attention tonight, and certainly the information that they've shared, is compelling and deserves another look. I just don't think we've done enough to look at some options. And in light of the fact that there's the Parman Farms issue and there may be other things that have been overlooked, I don't want to rush to get this done just to get it out of the way. I think that the people at Silver Creek deserve a little bit more time. I think we deserve a little bit more time to see what we can do to help this. You know, the people at Mill Creek have already been rezoned, and you're looking at overcrowding quickly, and are they going to be moved again? And I don't think it's right. I think that they have made compelling arguments tonight, and they deserve a little bit of attention from us. And if we can't do anything about it, then we did the best that we can. But at this point, there's no reason not to consider other options.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Welch?
Thank you. So I think a lot of us have heard from people in the public many times when we're out there about what a thankless job school board is, and I my response to that is always, I disagree. I think it's very much a thank job. We take a lot of thanks in just being able to work with our teachers and our principals and our schools and these wonderful students and families. In a lot of ways, it's absolutely the best job that I've ever had, in that you get to work in one of the greatest communities and one of the greatest school districts, I think, in the entire country. Rezoning is not one of those happy items. There's nothing pleasurable in having to rezone families. No one up here has ever enjoyed it. It's a necessary evil that we have to do, and it's something that we have to do simply because the quality of our school district is such that people are clamoring to get in. 17 new schools in the next 10 years. So for the foreseeable future, it's going to be a necessary evil that we're going to continue to have to do. All of that said, I just want to compliment the community of Nolensville. I've gone through several of these, and a lot of times they get very nasty. You know, in the past we've heard comments about rotten orange schools. We've gotten emails that obviously I hate children, and just a lot of negative, nasty comments. Yeah, that's happened. And, you know, of all of the hundreds of emails that I've received on this from both sides, very passionate individuals on both sides, both pro-rezoning and both anti-rezoning, there was one that was maybe questionable, but nothing that I would really qualify as out of bounds. I would say everyone involved has been very factual. They've been very passionate why they're wanting to pro or con. They've provided very good evidence, and there's strong arguments on both sides. So I just want to make kind of that comment going out. I think the Nolensville community has really shined in this. In very dark times, you've really shown yourselves to be good neighbors and good citizens. So whatever happens with this, I hope you take some small comfort in that fact to start with. And that's all that I really want to say. I think I want to, again, compliment the community on that. And I also, Gary, I want to compliment on how you've handled this as well, both as board chair, you know, asking a lot of tough questions, bringing up a lot of questions that, quite frankly, I wouldn't even thought to have asked. You know, pulling out a lot of your history and experience that way, which goes all the way back to the 1800s, I believe, and a lot of rezonings that way.
That wasn't funny.
I think the crowd disagrees. I'm going to get with that laugh. But, you know, and also as a strong advocate for your community, obviously, I think that's been recognized, and I'm glad to see that, you know, you've certainly put the overtime in this, kind of doing the double duty, where I know normally as the board chair, you tend to take more of a quiet leadership role that way, so as not to unduly influence anything. But I've seen you sort of switch into the other hat on this very appropriately as your representative for your community that way. So I appreciate that. Again, not a happy vote tonight, but I hope everyone will realize that no matter how we all vote, we individually are all acting in what we feel is the best needs of the community as a whole. So, you know, again, I hope you take some small comfort in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cleveland?
Okay, I'd like to address one of the comments, well, several comments were made that asking the staff and Dr. Looney to look at the future plans, and I think he has done that. One of the, like to ask Dr. Looney, is Mill Creek, they're concerned about being rezoned again. And your comment, from what I understand from our work session, the whole future plan of that is to try to avoid them being rezoned again. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate all of your attention to this issue. Obviously, the staff's work, the body of work, is to create a zoning plan that will last 3 to 5 years. That's how we've been operating. And if you look at the Mill Creek rezoning that's proposed to you, this is the 4th year. This will be the coming 4th year. So I would say that from that lens, the zoning has worked. There are certain areas of our community that are experiencing rapid growth. It's asymmetrical growth. And the reality of it is, to develop a zoning plan, it takes about 4.5 to 5 months. We've been working on this for months. And what happens is, invariably, another development will show up in that process. And that will continue until there's no property left. I have every reason to believe that if the board approves this zoning plan, that specifically the Silver Streams community would not be impacted by another rezoning in 3 to 5 years. Now, having said that, I would be disingenuous if I didn't tell you that there's other rezonings that have to happen. And that's a truism. If the area to the south of the current Mill Creek zone, and generally speaking, I'm saying south of York Road, I'm not drawing a boundary by York Road, but generally speaking, south of York Road, that would have to leave Mill Creek Elementary School. And generally speaking, those families that are north and northwest of Nolensville Elementary School would have to leave Nolensville Elementary School to what we're thinking is Sunset Elementary School, but that's something you still have to approve. I do want to say this. Nolensville Elementary School, when we built Mill Creek, Nolensville Elementary and Mill Creek Elementary School were designed to be a clean feeder to to Mill Creek Middle School. And so any changing to those two variables creates pressure on the middle school side. And so regardless of what you end up approving, the capacity of the middle school is the capacity of the middle school, and it can't be increased. We didn't design that building to be increased in size for that purpose, because one of the board's desires is to create clean feeders. So we have 2 elementary schools, Nolensville Elementary and Mill Creek Elementary, that will continue to cleanly feed Mill Creek Middle School and then ultimately Nolensville High School. So I have every reason to believe that our planners have done a good job, and that this plan will last for 3 to 5 years for the Silver Stream community that's being impacted by this rezoning. Now, I know there are Bent Creek residents here. That doesn't exclude Bent Creek from being rezoned out of that area at some point in time in the future, because what's happening in Nolensville is the same thing that's happening in Spring Hill. There's a lot of density in a very small space. And I will tell you, if there's 15 acres of land available and the city approves a development, then we have to react to that. And so we are in a reactionary mode because we don't approve developments. Do we know about them? We generally know about them, but we don't consider them until they've received their final approval, because otherwise it's speculation.
And if I'm correct, then you're saying that the staff, you and the staff, do look at the long term, and the rezoning of Silver Stream was part of that long-term planning. And then also, as it was once mentioned by one of our one of the person that commented on the county commission, that we don't get schools. We can do a 5-year capital plan and project what schools we're going to have out there. We do plan for it, but we don't get the funds until the county approves it. The county usually doesn't approve it until they find a need for it, and that's usually when it's overcrowding. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mr. Galbraith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do thank everybody for their engagement in the process. I think early on it was a pretty amicable process, and I was a little disconcerted about the fact that it became an us versus them. I don't think that's how anybody intended it, but we certainly don't want to. We're certainly not pitting neighborhoods against one another. In fact, Gary in this case is the only one that has a constituent and that's going to be affected. The rest of us are all honestly trying to do what we think is best, and I literally believe that of each and every one of us, regardless of how it all comes down to there are multiple variables. Is how each of us values each of those variables and which one we choose to give more weight to. And I promise we're not trying to pick winners and losers. We're really trying to do the best thing, as is Dr. Looney and his staff. And so however the vote goes, just take heart, and I feel very confident that that we're all acting appropriately, and we're all trying to do the best thing for all the students involved. My preference is really, I feel like we're selecting between approving a plan which I believe to be flawed, and I certainly believe to vote no is a flawed vote as well. I don't have enough information, in addition to what Angela said. I don't have enough information as far as what are the ramifications of a no vote. What does that actually mean? So when I voted to table, and if this vote ultimately fails tonight, I don't think it's. I think it's, from me, I would like to see what are we, if we vote no, what are we voting for, and that is how would you respond and what would you do in that situation, and if it requires, maybe there's another action that we would take, and you could lay out what the future schools and what that rezoning or what that planning process is going to look like after a no vote, and then I would more have a choice, right? So
yes, sir, that's a fair question, and thank you for asking it. If the board doesn't approve the zoning plan, we'll go back to the drawing board. It'd probably take us 60 days to come up with an alternate plan. We've had that conversation. The alternate plan that we had was to split Bent Creek in half, or not in half, but split part of Bent Creek out. We can accelerate the construction of, potentially we could accelerate the construction of the Sunset Elementary School campus, but that's 15 months away at best, probably 2 years. There hasn't been a suggestion made to acquire the property to the south quicker. That's potential, but if you look at where the growth is, that can't provide significant relief to Mill Creek Elementary School. That's not a solution. It's a second step solution because there's just not enough density right there. The problem is you have so much density right around Nolensville Elementary School and Mill Creek, there's limited options. We have the same challenge in Spring Hill, to be honest with you, with Allendale and Longview right next to each other. And so we would go back to the drawing board and come up with some other solution. The downside of doing that obviously would be families don't know. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Emerson?
I'm just asking for really basically 30 days a month for us to investigate a little bit further. I cannot in good conscience vote right now to support it, the rezoning. And ultimately I know, because we've done this before, it's going to be hard to do, and it's not going to be, as you said, a very happy occasion for any of us. But I think there is a small window, and I think there's more information that can be garnered, and I think that we just need to, I'm just not comfortable with signing off on this at this point, and I want to be able to do that. This is a contentious process, and it's very difficult for all of us, for us and for the families involved, and when I vote, I want to make sure that I'm voting the best that I can for the people that live in that particular place, wherever it happens to be. And 30 days is not long. Just means we're going to put it off a month. It'll give us some time to talk about it again and really poke around at anything that might lend us some help. So I'm just asking for a month.
Thank you. Mr. Cash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the folks that came out tonight, and all the people that have really tried to come up with suggestions and whatnot, but I'd just like to remind folks of the big rezoning in South Central Williamson County last year. It involved 1,200 students, the majority of which were elementary students. The majority of it was in District 2. Gary, I know how hard you've worked. I called the office every day. I sat in staff meetings. What if, what if, what if? In every way we turned, there was a ripple effect. Something else had to change. Something had to be adjusted. It's a ripple effect that goes right down through the all the planning, the transportation, the logistics. And I learned a lot from that rezoning. I had one subdivision, 250 children that were going to school a mile away, and they needed to be rezoned 8 miles away. That didn't sit well. Today, in PTO meetings and whatnot, I get a lot of positive feedback from that. The buses go in, pick up the students, they're at school in 10 minutes, and they're the first ones home in the evening. There's a lot of things we don't want to do, and that's move our children around. And I just know from last year's rezoning, because it was so big, because we had to fill an elementary and a middle school. But sitting with staff members and being on the phone with the folks that are involved in this, they look at every avenue there is to look at. Now, subdivisions right now in South Central, I know of 3 properties that have sold, and there's probably 400 houses going to be going in. Everywhere east of 65. I don't care where you go, north, south, there's subdivisions going in everywhere. The Clovercroft corridor is prime building sites all the way through there. We're not putting a Band-Aid on anything. I trust our staff in the people that do this day in and day out. And we have policies. I have 8 folks that lived right across the street from a school, an elementary school that was rezoned to another school a mile away. We looked at it. That was the only thing we could do. I had about 10 other people, families, that wanted to stay in a zone for a middle school. It didn't work out. We had 3 meetings a week, just as you folks have been having meetings, and people have been out there. We've been looking at maps, driving it. The bottom line is these folks try their best. We're not perfect, because we don't know what's coming at us half the time. Like Mr. Welch said, we've got 17 schools we need to build. But they try their best, and I have to support our staff and our zoning folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cash. Board members, I have tried to push the request to speak button since I wanted to separate my board chairman position from this issue. As Dana can testify, it doesn't work for me.
How can it be?
I'm sorry. All right. Mr. Hall?
I'll defer to the chairman.
Well, I'll wait to then, just so you know that I have tried to jump in there.
I just want to echo the sentiments expressed about the community involvement. Everyone who's come to these meetings and written emails has been very constructive and positive. I think that the task is not to say, no, we don't want this, but okay, what's the trade-off? What other solutions can you bring to the table? And I would say that there has been so much feedback that we've received. You folks have done a tremendous job of informing us as we go into this. And the one thing that I do want everyone to consider is wherever they sit on whichever side of the aisle on this, to just have some empathy for the other side as it is. You know, we've seen a lot of the photos of the families who have names on the wall at Mill Creek Elementary School, and there's a real attachment there that really needs to be considered. And even if you think that the community should be moved, at least understand where they're coming from, and try to put yourself in those shoes and think, okay, I won't want to be in portables, but would I volunteer to be rezoned to avoid being in portables? I understand the opposition to those, but given the trajectory of growth in Nolensville and around the community, it's almost inevitable at some time that there will be a lack of capacity available before the buildings are built. So that's a consideration. I do also want to say that the staff and Dr. Looney have been very responsive to a lot of the suggestions that have been presented, the concerns that have been addressed, so many questions answered. And Dr. Looney, how long would you say that this process has taken place before a proposal is even out there?
We were at it for 4.5 months.
Yeah. So even before that's considered, there's so much that goes through drafts and iterations and consideration before it's presented. So I always feel like the concerns are addressed proactively, but even when there's a response that's needed, I thought they did an excellent job of putting together the answers last week in the work session, and I do feel that that's been addressed. My concern, part of this that gives me pause, though, is that with this plan, that when we talk about the unlikelihood that Silver Stream could be moved back to Mill Creek as part of the plan, I feel like there could be an impetus, a reason to keep it that way. And when I look at the map and the walkability and the trails and the proximity of that neighborhood to the schools, I don't know that that's how we would design it from scratch, and that's part of what's going into my thoughts. So as we look at this plan, I think it does a perfect job of resolving a capacity issue for 2019 and 20. I mean, the numbers fit perfectly, but the long-term solution, I think, is where maybe we need to give a little bit more resource to planning and looking at what do we have available in terms of near future capacity that we could add in the area. I know that it's grown at an unprecedented rate and will continue to do so, and maybe this is an opportunity to do more of a long-term plan than what we've been able to do in the past.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am more than glad to yield to your pleasure.
Okay. I'll be glad to go now then. Thank you. Rezoning is absolutely the most difficult decision that a school board member has to make. We have grown over 1,000 students per year for the past 29 years. We have built 37 new schools in the past 29 years, which means we've had to go through a lot of difficult decision processes that really don't like. Williamson County has become one of the most desirable destinations for people who have school-age children, and we all know that. I moved here. I'm venturing most people in this room did move here for Williamson County schools. We have excellent schools, and none of them take a back seat to another one. From every part of the county, we have excellent schools everywhere. So this is not this school is great, this school is not great. I feel all of our schools are just wonderful schools. What we hear are things now about why people move here, why they go and why they decide to live where they want to live. And partly because of that, we're blessed to live in a county that values public education to the extent that it does, but it also creates constant growing pains for us. And we've all gone through that. No matter how long we've been on the board, we've experienced that already. As you know, I'm not going to support this proposal to rezone part of the Mill Creek Elementary School zone. I'll be voting no on the plan for a few different reasons. I've had experience with rezoning. The idea of looking ahead a few years to a more stable long-term solution to the most rapidly growing area in the county. It used to be where Nolensville didn't grow, but once we got the sewer line in there, all of a sudden everybody decided we need to build more houses. And so the developers have really taken that by storm and have developed a tremendous amount of houses, which means we've got to add more schools. And we're always in the reactionary mode of adding the schools after we find out things are going to happen. All of us have heard from many of our community members, some for, some against the rezoning, and there's been some great ideas presented. But before I go any further into this, I wanted to say one thing that I said at the work session the other night that's been misrepresented and talked about is we said that portables are not the right solution for us. That's a short-term fix, very short, it's costly, it has other issues that we don't like. So I'm not asking for portables. I just want to, because I saw a lot of people writing and speaking about that. But here are my issues with this particular rezoning, because it is different than the other ones we've had. We are moving an existing subdivision that is totally built out. I mean, they're fully built out, and it actually touches the school property lines within walking distance, and we have never done that before. We have had zones established before houses were built that touched the property line, but we moved them out eventually just to establish the zone. But we've never done one that's been fully built out. We'll be rezoning a different section away from Nolensville. Dr. Looney had mentioned that when we move, if this zoning takes place, in another year and a half, we're going to be moving people out of Nolensville and a different group to another school. So like we experienced in Mill Creek and Nolensville, we do not know what we do not know. We do not know what's coming into the area. Developers know, but we don't know. We don't know which farmland is going to be sold off and which one's going to be bought and turned into a new housing development. Without any new school building structures in the immediate area, Nolensville Elementary School, Mill Creek Elementary School will be once again over capacity in less time than we might think because of all the unknowns. Now I recognize that Mill Creek Elementary will be asked to house some additional students over the ideal design capacity and utilize some of Mill Creek Middle School side of the building for a window of time, which I'm asking for about 2 years. Bottom line is that we will need more structures in the Nolensville area to house all the students coming into the district. As Dr. Looney has pointed out, the district is currently looking at 2 potential properties. One on the south end towards Triune, which would help Nolensville, College Grove, Triune, that area. That one's not going to really help what this zoning plan is we're talking about now, but if another piece of that property is closer into Nolensville, that could establish a much longer term stable zoning pattern for the area. With it growing as fast as it is, and I've been told by some people that are involved with zoning stuff, it's growing at a faster rate for school children than it did down in Spring Hill when Spring Hill went through its initial boom. So concerned about that. My vote tonight is to state that we need to be trying to look further down the road than just fix for 2 years until we have a rezone again, because the school that we are sending this community to will have to be rezoned itself. Voting this proposal down would be asking the administration to look at all potential options to making the current situation work until a new building can be built in the area within a 2-year window. And I've asked Dr. Looney to look at the potential of that in our 5-year plan. We have other schools to see if things can be moved around a little bit to help satisfy that. With a new school facility, it's very possible to make it work where we can make the zoning last for a longer term. I feel it is not the board's place to tell administration how to make this happen. It's the board's place to say, we feel that we can make it happen. Please do your obviously due diligence and trying to make it happen. And I'm looking at, rather than a short-term move, more long-term stability. And that's pretty much my whole case on this. It's about, let's look long-term, let's not do some things we've never done before without knowing what we're doing. So that was what I was wanting to say. So thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak like that. Ms. Durham, you're up next. Mr. Mitchell, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Looney, and I guess maybe I'll throw this out to Denise as well. I did not support the tabling motion because I was not sure what impact pushing this out another 30 days would have on the staff and the planning for the new school year. Can one of you two please explain what impact tabling would have if we had to spend another 30 days looking at this?
Yes, sir. I can speak to it generally. I can't give you specifics tonight, obviously. It would likely have some staffing changes that would be required if we did or didn't do the rezoning. Obviously, if we sent more students out of Mill Creek to Nolensville, then we would have to transfer staff and we have to give them notice. So other than that, I think,
It pushes the scheduling out 30 days,
well,
basically.
it pushes scheduling, it pushes,
I mean, and everything's driven from the scheduling.
Ms.
on
Goodwin,
the
you want to
number,
add to that?
the number of faculty, your bus, the logistics, everything's driven by that, right? So it puts additional pressure. Now, I'm assuming the people who do the scheduling are 11-month employees and would still have time to do that, or not?
Yes, sir. If the board pushes it back, we'll work overtime. We'll do whatever's necessary to try to put the plans in place. But I don't know that, and I'm being candid, I don't know that we can come up with an alternate plan in 30 days. I don't know that we can do that.
And so then it becomes, if it's a 60-day or we don't do it at all, then we know what the impact of that is that you have a more overcrowded school next year than you do this year. And if we go 60 or 90 days, you're really under pressure of being able to make a zoning change and get everything rolled out by August, I would guess.
I would add, whether you buy into the notion that this is a good midterm strategy, because I would say it's not a short-term strategy, but I think it's more of a midterm strategy, with good ideas about what to do long-term amidst a lot of uncertainty. So whether you buy into that or not, the fact of the matter is that there are hundreds of seats available at a very nearby school. And so you're not only impacting the students from Silver Streams that would potentially be negatively impacted, the perception is negatively impacted by Nolensville, but you're impacting the entire student population at both the elementary and middle level at Mill Creek.
I get that. So, we all know that zoning, I was thinking on the way here that rezoning, or the frequent rezoning, is one of, if not the largest downside of going to school in Williamson County, because it just is part of going to school in Williamson County. The growth, as Chairman Anderson made a point, I used the statistic that the district has been, on average, building a classroom a week for 25 years. And we've got to fill those classrooms. I'm not in favor of keeping the school overcrowded. And I'm not in favor of spending money on portables when there's empty desks in the same community. The physical concerns that we as board members here have to deal with month in and month out are always present. And if we're not keeping them, if we're not considering that as well, then our county commission friends are going to put more pressure on us than they already do. Of all the emails we've received and the ideas that I've listened to, I have not heard a less difficult decision or option. And as I've just heard from Dr. Looney and Denise, is that pushing it out has impact as well on both staff, families, and at least 3 schools. So I'm prepared to make a vote tonight in support of the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Ms. Durham, did you want to speak?
Thank you. And thanks to all of you guys too for all of your communication. Everybody, Bent Creek, Silverstream, everybody's had such great ideas and thoroughly engaged. It's kind of exciting to look at my phone and have all these messages. I feel very important. No, I'm just kidding. I will all get them. No, but I don't support portables. I don't support splitting subdivisions in half. I don't support large costs for interim solutions like, you know, I don't know, whatever those large costs could be, portables, I guess. Constant disruption to communities fighting and hurting each other, all the angst that goes into rezoning. But what I do support is a really comprehensive evaluation of all of the communities. We have this map here that's got all these schools within a very close distance of each other with a lot of capacity and a lot of available seats. There's more available seats than just at Nolensville. We've got Jordan with available seats. We've got, you know, Kenrose. We've got Sunset's just got a few. But I mean, there are available seats everywhere. And I think that I would support, you know, Dan, you just mentioned 1,200 kids being rezoned in the southern part of the county. We're only talking about 200 right now. But I wouldn't be opposed to looking at affecting more numbers of students for the right mix of a rezoning plan. I feel like pulling these 200 out to put a Band-Aid and a short-term patch on a really big problem isn't the right thing to do to the community. I feel like maybe move a few other families that can stay together. Dr. Looney, you and I just talked about shifting the eastern part of the Sunset community to Nolensville in exchange for the northern Jordan to Sunset, Bent Creek to Jordan. You know, I mean, there's some things that you can do if you just kind of look at all the communities around each other. There's another argument that, you know, somebody gave me this map. Bill Brown from the Silverstream community gave me this map, and he pointed out that, you know, all these communities here, Whitmore, Silverstream, Summerlin, Telfair, I guess Parman Farm, not quite sure, are all, you know, they all have walking trails to Mill Creek. It really makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like West Haven community. They can all get there. What if we took the northern part of West Haven and said you're going to go to, you know, Franklin Special or something? I just feel like what makes the most sense is to try to maneuver in the other surrounding schools where there are seats available. I absolutely would not support this plan as it exists today. I feel like it's short-sighted. I feel like it's just a short-term fix. I feel like there's a broad Gantt chart type of approach that's needed. We need to look at all the schools, all the subdivisions, put them on a big thing, have a strategic planning session around zoning. I'll come and participate in it at night, on weekends, or whatever needs to happen. But I believe that there's a lot of good things that we can do with this zoning, and it doesn't have to be focused on one small group of kids. It can really be strategic and well-rounded and have also an escalation of all of the capital initiatives. We need to get the Sunset Edition completed quickly, escalate the southern school being built, you know, land purchase under Mill Creek. There's a lot of things that need to be done rather than just open up 50 and 60 seats next year at both schools.
Thank you. Mr. Welch?
Can I defer to Mr. Wimberly?
Sure. Mr. Wimberly?
Earlier this evening, we turned down an amendment to table this for 30 days, and then Dr. Looney was asked the question, what would happen if there's a no vote? And he told us that it would take 60 days before another potential solution could be developed, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Dr. Looney, in your judgment, do you think that there is a solution out there that could be found in the next 60 days that would move no students?
No, sir.
So one way or the other, we're going to be moving some students, and I can assure you, if it's not Silverstream or some, someone else in Nolensville, that we're going to have the same type of reaction from whomever we move. We always have that reaction. And if we look at this point of a major rezoning and just totally blowing up what we've been doing, what we've been working for, and starting over, you're going to have a county worth of people who are upset. Now, it is not easy to rezone people, but we are fortunate that we live in a community that has insisted on strong schools throughout our system. So we're not zoning anyone to an inferior school. I was talking to some fellow school board members from other counties today, and they were asking, how's your day? I said, it's great. I've heard from like 50 of my best friends giving me advice on what to do about this zoning, which I say that sarcastically, but I do appreciate the emails. And they said, do you respond to them? I said, I really can't, but the ones I would respond to, and we have heard virtually none of this, is if someone says, don't send me to that school because the other school is an inferior school. And I've gotten those before, although, once again, not this time. So this is going to be difficult, and we can defer the difficulty for 60 days, and we're still going to need to move students, one way or the other.
Thank you. Dr. Looney, you want to speak?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the moment of the opportunity to speak. I just want to clarify, and this is going to come across as defensive, and I don't mean it that way, but I want you to know that our planning department is made up of professional staff members that have decades of experience and have spent 4+ months looking at this issue. We're not perfect. They're not perfect, nor am I. But I do have a lot of confidence in them trying to make good recommendations. The board has historically, now you didn't give us parameters this time, but the board has historically said, plan for a 3 to 5 year rezoning, because when I first got here, it was 1 year. Affect as few students as possible, and don't split neighborhoods. We've met and honored those 3 parameters that we've historically operated. Now, I recognize that you didn't give us formal parameters this time, but we operated under that assumption. We're affecting as few families as we possibly can. We're trying to make the zoning last 3 to 5 years, and we're not splitting any neighborhoods up. If you want different parameters, then give me that guidance, and I'll have staff work in a different direction. But I do want you to know that I don't think the plan is short-sighted or ill-conceived. It's not the plan that perhaps you would create, but my folks have worked really, really hard, and I just want you to know that.
Okay. Mr. Welch, did you want your time?
I do, please. So first off, I want to say, everybody, very quietly, take a look at the little Cub Scout right here in the front row, zonked out. Troop 130, you came on the wrong month. You should have been here in January. He's still out. So real quick, I just want to say, I think there's been some calls tonight for some long-term plans, and that happened. That happened on the very first night that I was sworn into the board. In fact, we did a county-wide rezone. And let me tell you, there were 20 silver streams. And the only reason we don't have 1-year rezones is because we did some long-term strategic planning. So while I respect everyone's point of view, these statements that we have not done some long-term strategic planning is just simply not true. Because we don't have this more often, that's a result of this. Dr. Lynn, I have 2 quick yes/no questions for you. First one being, is this a perfect plan, yes or no?
No.
In your opinion, is it the best plan?
Yes.
Okay. With that, then I'd like to call the question.
Okay. Calling the question requires what?
He has already spoken. He cannot call the question.
You've already spoken. You cannot call the question. Okay, Mr. Galbraith.
Just real quick, thanks, Gary, for all the work that you've done. I tend to, I mean, this solely affects your district, and I completely trust your. I respect all the work that Dr. Looney and his staff have done, and I also respect all the work that you have put into it, and I trust that that you, working with the staff over the next 30 days, can come up with a plan that that we can all get behind, and that's what I would like to see. So I'll be voting no.
Thank you, Ms. Garrett.
Just really quick. I, of course, have a very significant rezoning in my area. Over 300? Oh, way over 300? Okay. And I was asked for some exceptions and was contacted about some exceptions. And I pointed those folks to board policy and to staff resources who could help them think through their issues. I feel like that as a board, and I said this at the work session, that we need to manage by our parameters and not manage by exception, because every community will have a valid exception, whether it's, you know, what high school you're going to, or this district butts up against FSSD, and you know, we were traditionally here, we've been rezoned X number of times. There's always an exception. And so I feel like it's our responsibility when we are conducting business just like at work in a real-time environment and taking in all the data that we have to make the best decision possible at the time. If we want to change our parameters or look at our parameters each time we're conducting a rezoning, then let's do that. But if we look at our parameters that we established, you know, some of the things that have been brought up consistently aren't part of the parameters, the last parameters that we set as a board in January 2017. So I'm casting my vote based on a goal for consistency across the district and being able to offer one group of, you know, according to our code of ethics, make the best decision possible across the district, vote across the board, and, you know, just trying to work on principle about my vote. That's my long-winded statement.
Thank you. Mr. Welch?
I'd like to call the question.
Okay, so the appropriate response to calling the question would be?
We would need a second and 2/3.
We need a second to the motion to call the question. We have a second from Ms. Garrett, and there's no debate, correct? This is just no debate. We need 2/3 of the people, of the board members voting to have the question called, correct? All right. Dr. Looney, you want to weigh in on this one?
No, sir.
Gary, it has to be roll call.
Roll call?
You need a roll call?
For call to question, yes.
Okay.
Angela Durham? Yes. Dan Cash?
Yes.
Elliot Mitchell?
Yes.
Brad Fiskus?
Yes.
Gary Anderson?
Yes.
Joe Galbraith?
Yes.
Sheila Cleveland?
Yes.
Candy Emerson?
Yes.
Rick Wimberly?
Yes.
Eric Welch?
Yes.
Casey Hall?
Yes.
Nancy Garrett? Yes. 12 yes.
All right. The question has been called, so there's no further discussion or debate on this. We have the superintendent's recommendation when he said it at the very beginning, so the vote then to approve, the vote is to a yes vote approves the rezoning plan as presented by the district, and no vote is to not approve the rezoning plan. So board members, if you go ahead and record your votes then, please.
Your vote is 6 yes, 6 no.
Okay, so the
Zoning plan fails.
zoning plan fails, and we are on to the next item on the agenda. Next item on our agenda is the 2019-2020 open zone schools. Dr. Looney.
Mr. Chairman, given the board's not approving the zoning recommendation, I think it would be prudent for you to hold off on this. So with your permission and the chairman's permission, I'd like to pull this from the agenda.
I'm fine with pulling that because the open zone has a lot to do with the zoning plan.
Yes, sir.
So board members will pull that one from the agenda for now.
So we have voted on the agenda.
Sorry.
So we voted on the agenda and approved it. So let's get a motion and a second to pull it from the agenda.
There we go.
Because we've approved the
Yeah,
agenda
you're right.
per board policy.
Okay, we need to have a motion and a second and to pull it from the agenda. Okay, we have a motion from Ms. Cleveland, second from Ms. Emerson. Then we need to have a vote as well. Okay, do we need to do a roll call vote, Brian?
Do we have to vote on it?
We do. Per our board policy, we approve the agenda, so roll
Yeah,
call.
Roll call.
I'm sorry, what are we?
To pull, because we have, per our board policy, approved the agenda, we are doing a vote to, in fact, pull this from the agenda. So it's not loaded, so we'll do a roll call vote.
Is there any discussion?
There can be discussion if anybody
There
wants to
can be discussion. Does the people want to address this?
Ms. Nunley has some concerns, but we'll address them with staff.
Okay, Mr. Galbraith?
Well, I guess as of right now, none of the open zone schools are affected by the policy, by the rezoning plan that's up for discussion when it comes back up. And so I don't know that, I'm not sure that that having it go for everybody else wouldn't be a bad idea. And once we approve another plan, then if that includes some open zone schools, then we could add them to the list at a further date. Is that acceptable?
It's possible, Mr. Galbraith. I don't know what impact any future rezoning plan would have open zoning. As an example, the school Jordan Elementary was mentioned tonight. So let's assume that we come up with a plan that moves a bunch of people to Jordan, and if we had open zoned it, then we would have shot ourselves in the foot. So I recognize that it complicates things, but if we're going to do things deliberately, let's make sure that we get this one right. So.
Sure.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions on this? I don't see any. So then, according to our attorney, we need to take a vote. We need to take a vote on this now?
Yes, sir.
And did you say roll call? You need, Brian?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Angela Durham? Yes. Dan Cash?
Yes.
Elliot Mitchell?
Yes.
Brad Fiskus?
Yes.
Gary Anderson?
Yes.
Jay Galbraith?
Yes.
Sheila Cleveland?
Yes.
Candy Emerson?
Yes.
Rick Wimberly?
Yes.
Eric Welch?
Yes.
Casey Hall?
Yes.
Nancy Garrett?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Board. Our next item then is the 2019-2020 school fees. Dr. Looney.
Recommend approval.
Anyone like to make a motion to? We have a motion from Mr. Welch, and I'd like to second that.
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Mitchell. Any further discussion on school fees? Mr. Galbraith.
Thank you, Dr. Looney, for acknowledging my annual remarks at school fees, but and I will be proposing an amendment to the budget to take care of this. It continues to be my policy that we should not require school fees for academic classes, particularly at the high school level, where students are moving from class to class. And I understand that a lot of these fees are paying for tissues and wipes and other things, but teachers are getting that from 6 different class periods rather than just one at the elementary school level, and it makes fees. I just fundamentally disagree that somebody should be asked to pay $35 to take algebra or $75 to take an AP class, when a lot of the money is going to not only cleaning supplies and personal items, but also to paper. I feel like we should be funding our schools to the extent that they can buy paper, and they're not out of paper by January. So it's $1 million annually is what our students pay in our high school students pay in fees. So I don't fundamentally have a problem with the $25 supply fee at the elementary school level. It seems to be, but when you're taking 6 or 7 classes and you're asked to pay $25 to $50 a piece, it's not acceptable. And so I've asked Dr. Looney to come to us with a with a budget that, and to take some come to us so that we can go to the county commission this year with a budget that that properly funds our schools, and not to give them a budget necessarily that he thinks they can pass, but a budget that he thinks we should pass. And this is part of that. So while I respect this is a vote on the maximum fees that can be charged. In my experience, most of these fees are charged, and we're putting parents in a situation of being asked to voluntarily pay a fee and then being guilted into not paying that fee, and by teachers and by others saying that if you don't pay these fees, then the teachers are having to pay this out of their pocket, which is absolutely not my intention. My intention is to fund the schools so that the teachers don't have to ask. So I will be annually voting no on this.
Thank you. Any further discussions? Okay, I see none. You have the director's recommendation. If you go ahead and record your votes then, please.
Your vote is 11 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. Our next item is the adoption and approval of the superintendent's goals. Dr. Looney.
Yes, sir. I think I should have some.
Anyone like to make a motion on the superintendent's goals? Motion from Ms. Emerson. Anyone like to second? Second from Mr. Hall. Any discussions, comments, or questions on this one? Okay, I see none. He said he should have some goals, so I'm assuming that's your recommendation?
Yes, sir.
All right, if you go ahead and record your votes then, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you, Board. Our next item is Superintendent's tenure recommendations to the Board. Dr. Looney.
Mr. Chairman, board members, it gives me great pleasure to recommend the following individuals that are on your screen to become tenured in Williamson County Schools.
We have a motion for approval from Mr. Wimberly. Second. We have a second from Ms. Emerson. Any comments, questions, discussion about the tenure lists presented by the director to the board for approval? Okay, I see none. If you go ahead and record your votes then, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. Our next item is policy 4.4061, students, and 5.6121, employees on acceptable use and internet safety agreement. Dr. Looney.
Mr. Chairman, board members, I do recommend approval.
I'd like to make a motion to approve these policies. We have a motion from Mr. Fiskus. Anyone like to second that motion? Second from Mr. Cash. Any comments, questions, discussions? I see none. If you go ahead and record your votes then, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The next policy is board policy on second reading, 3.201, naming of schools. Dr. Looney.
Mr. Chairman, board members, this has been debated almost as much as zoning. I do recommend approval of this final reading.
Anyone like to make a motion on this one? Ms. Garrett, thank you. Like to second? We have a second from Ms. Durham. Any discussion on this? Thank you. If you'd go ahead and record your votes, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you, Board. Our next board policy is first reading. It's 5.310, vacation and holidays. Dr. Looney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. I do recommend approval of this upon first reading.
I'd like to make a motion on this one. We have a motion from Mr. Mitchell, second from Mr. Cash. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my question, I guess, coming into this is when will this become effective?
Next school year.
Next school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I see none. If you'd go ahead and record your votes, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. And our last policy this evening is 6.402, physical examinations and immunizations. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. I just want to clarify, we're not proposing any kind of change to the standard for immunizations in Williamson County schools. This is completely in compliance with state law. Do recommend approval upon first reading.
We have a motion to approve from Mr. Welch. We have a second from Mr. Hall. Any further comments, questions, discussions? I see none. Then you go ahead and record your votes then, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. Board members, I hate to tell you, but that ends our agenda for this evening. I thank everyone for being here, and we'll see you again at the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.